Hello, Parsons Core 3 topics students. This is Marcos Chavez, and this is your week 7 internal branding workshop lecture. This is our second lecture of the week. We've been enjoying a great series of lectures from fellow faculty members studying and looking at these different topics. And today we're going to look at the internal part of branding, internal branding. We're going to look at the principles and process, and I'm going to share a case study and a few other examples from the work I've done in order to help us get a better understanding. So we're going to go over some things here. What is a brand? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about internal versus external branding and the idea of the process and how it begins within you. And then I want to look inside a healthy brand as a case study. So what is a brand? Now, that question is not something that any of you may have entered your education here at Parsons School of Design wondering or asking about. A brand is something that is quite known by almost everyone. It's an idea that is ingrained in us in a way. We have brands that pervade our world. Everywhere we look, everything we do, everywhere we interact, we engage with these brands of all sorts. And they range from so many different things, and they provide to us services, they provide to us products, they keep us healthy, they keep us moving around in the world, they help us define ourselves through fashion, they keep us connected through technology. They're ubiquitous throughout our experience as humans in the culture and the society we're currently living in. And the fact that brands are everywhere isn't something that is new to us or maybe even that interesting, but I think what is new and different is how we look at what brands are and what branding is and get a even deeper idea of how they affect us and what their purpose is. And I want to jump into that a little bit as we talk about branding and then the idea of what internal branding is. So I just want to cite a quote here from a thought leader in our industry, a guy named Marty Neumeier, who wrote this book, The Brand Gap, back in the 90s. And he had some really interesting and deep insights that sort of changed the way we look at branding. This quote here says, "A brand is a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or company." Now, this quote seems pretty simple, but there's really some deep insights here and something that really kind of changed our idea of what we think of when we think of a brand. And that's this idea that a brand resides within individual people. It's about the impression that someone has about something. And that's a shift from the idea of a brand being something that's a tangible item, a product, a thing in our hands, a thing that we can point to, but instead being an experience, and a brand being something that happens over the course of time. And that was a big change in the way we began looking at brands, and that change started to happen a lot due to the fact of the kind of technologies that were emerging and how we became more interactive, not only in our daily experiences with brands, but overall how we experience ourselves with one another. And the role of technology creating more of a communication connection really helped us understand that branding is something that happens in each and everyone's individual mind. Another thought leader, Michael Eisner, former CEO of Disney, put it this way. He says that a brand is a living entity and it's enriched or undermined cumulatively over time, the product of 1,000 small gestures. Now, this quote implies the idea of time even deeper, and it's telling us that branding is not a static, it's not a static experience. A brand doesn't stay fixed, but instead, a brand is experienced through time and through many different people's minds and perceptions and experiences over time. So in a way, with these two ideas about branding and taking in the concept of brand being something that happens within us, within me, within you, and that branding happens over the course of time, you can begin to start thinking about the idea of a brand as being a living entity, and the idea that a brand is alive because it changes over the course of time. It changes over every single little experience that one person has or another person has, and those experiences get shared and those impressions change, and a brand is an ongoing, developing idea. So, and with that in mind, that keeps us from considering brand or branding as being something that you create, you do, and you're finished with. Instead, brand or branding is an ongoing process. And as professional visual communicators, we participate in the idea of branding by creating the kind of communication elements that help guide those experiences and help us understand what those experiences are based on and what products are based on and what is behind the idea of the foundation of a company, a product, or a service. So if branding is this thing we do as communication experts, as communication professionals, then what is the purpose of branding? What does it do? What does it serve? How does it help create a positive outcome? And a few things that we can go over here is that branding builds loyalty. And branding is about this idea of creating an awareness, creating a consistent message, creating a consistent experience. By doing a disciplined branding process, you can create a connection with people that is consistent and is clear and is grounded in foundations, ideas, and values that then build on loyalty and can create emotions like love. Like you can begin to love a brand because you understand it, because you relate to it, because you're connecting with it. It can have the opposite effect too and be negative if the values don't connect, or if the brand is not connected with what their values are and they don't understand that and are able to consistently express themselves. But building loyalty is important, and branding kind of serves as this big navigation device for us as humans. It helps us be able to choose. And branding participates in this idea of the free market. Because we live in a culture where we have the ability to choose things, to have options, to acquire the things that are important to us, acquire the things that we need, and not only need, but that we want, and acquire things that help us define who we are. And brands do that. And the idea of having this choice is really about the idea of freedom of choice. So in a way, when we're consumers and we're choosing between brands, it's almost that we have a vote in things, that we're able to participate in our democracy in a new kind of way by choosing to spend our money, our time, or our attention on something because it appeals to us. So as individuals who are empowered to choose, we need guidance to make those choices, and brands help us navigate through the endless amount of choices and things that are before us and that could connect to us. And branding helps us get to the place that we want to be and make those right choices. And then branding also, in the same idea of choice, it sparks competitiveness between these different options. It creates this energy that wants you to lead and move and outpace competitive brands, competitive companies that are offering similar services, similar products, that allows us to find ways to create distinctions, to create unique propositions that can specifically connect to audiences in a more direct and meaningful way. And branding offers companies that leverage. And that's an important thing, this idea of competitiveness, because competitiveness builds a more quality offering for each of us to have better things, to have things that are more meaningful, better made, better thought through. And competitiveness is a marker that sparks quality and raises quality to higher and higher levels. So there's a dynamic involved in branding that helps fuel this idea of competing and improving and evolving. And then branding also kind of provides leadership. It provides a set of meaning and a sort of values and a course and a map and a North Star and the kind of system within a company or within a service that helps that group, helps that team, helps those humans who are behind a brand create a story that is connective to the audience they're targeting, and then helps improve the way that their audience's lives are. So in a way, this kind of synergy is required. What's required is the idea of leadership at the top, and teams having a guidance and having the ability to be able to know what their message is and how to connect to audiences in the most efficient and most inspiring way possible. So branding is the result of branding gives us these brand identities, these things that we as visual communicators can create. The idea of a logo, the idea of brand guidelines, the idea of how do we use typography and color and messaging and text, and how do we put those things into packages that create the right kind of story. And so what's necessary about brand identities is that we have the power to use those tools and to project those meanings in a way that provides an emotional connection to the target audience and the people that we want to connect to. Again, it empowers this idea of providing choice through brand identities. We can create distinctions between the choices. It's a big way to navigate and allow consumers to get through the clutter and the choices and find exactly what they need in the fastest, most efficient way, so they can move on to doing bigger and better and more important things that align with their own values. And brand identities help provide this kind of stability that leads to trust and belief and loyalty, which in part then builds these lifelong relationships that make the kind of brands you connect with automatic and not in need of a lot of thinking through or research or understanding. Like, you know what the brands that you trust are, they express themselves in a consistent way, and you connect with them on an ongoing basis. All right, so when we're talking about branding, we want to be able to kind of have this idea of these two parts of branding, the idea of the internal and external branding, and how these two parts work together. Maybe a couple of ways of looking at what internal and external branding is to think of it in two parts. Think of it as the idea of brand emergence and brand ignition. When you think of emergence, it's this idea of like something being birth of, like something being formed and created, like the energy required to make something come from nothing to something new and different and unique. And then ignition is to take that thing and to activate it into the world. So internal branding connects with this idea of a brand strategy, a foundational set of principles that define what the brand is about. And then external branding is taking an understanding of the internal brand and the brand strategy based on that, and then be able to express the brand in tangible ways, in ways that lead to touch points that connect with the consumer that you're targeting. So if we take a look here at this, at these two set of pie charts, it kind of gives us a nice dissection of what internal branding and what external branding and how they divide within the idea of brand touch points. And to remind you, a touch point is really a point of contact that a consumer, a buyer, a person of interest, a place where the brand connects with someone. And you may think that a brand touch point, well, of course, that's going to be a product on a shelf or a product online that you choose from. And that is a touch point. Those are touch points. Packaging are touch points. Corporate identities are touch points. But branding happens in your mind. It doesn't just happen as a result of something you put on a shelf, or as a result of something you make. So we have to think of branding in a deeper way. And that's where this idea of creating this distinction between internal and external branding and touch points that can happen within human experiences. So internal branding happens in the realm of attitudes and images and actions. And external branding kind of focuses around the whole experience of purchasing, or the whole experience of engaging, or of becoming aligned with something. It doesn't necessarily have to be a product. It could be that, becoming aligned with an idea or a message. So it's about the pre-purchase experience, like what happens before you make that decision. How are you engaging with the brand? How are you becoming aware of the brand? And then within the purchase experience itself, when you make the decision, what processes do you go to get the product or the service you've chosen? And then it happens within the post-purchase experience. So if you, for example, buy a chair, the idea of buying a chair doesn't just stop at the purchase. It continues on every time you sit in the chair for the life of that, as long as you have that chair within your life. So an external brand really does revolve around that. And then the internal brand, again, connects with the idea of how do you interact with the brand at a different level than the purchase process. So is it in the way you speak to the employee, to a customer service person? Is it the way that a company handles quality control, how they view their corporate citizenship and their role in the society in a bigger way, and how they show up for the causes that might matter to you? So these two sides of branding work hand in hand, with internal branding really being about the foundation of what defines a brand and what the meaning behind a brand is all about. So when we talk about internal brand, we kind of want to see it as this idea of the DNA of a brand, the DNA of a product, the DNA of a service. And in short, you can see it as just what is a company's purpose. That's what makes up an internal brand. The meaningful reason why a brand exists is how you define the principles around the internal brand and how you voice those. So the internal branding process is about like kind of creating something around the idea of purpose and meaning and why you're beginning a company, why you're starting to offer a service. What is it that drives, what is the why behind what you're doing and what motivates that? So typically in this process, it kind of starts with an idea in this sort of entrepreneurial way. It begins with this idea of like, how can I improve someone's life? How can I improve my community's welfare? How can I do things that help the world globally become better or be safer? So it starts with an idea, and then it becomes this idea of like, how can my idea offer value? How can my idea offer improvement? What are the products and services that are within that? So this idea translates to a value-centered proposition that is connected to products or services. And then a brand is created by finding meaning in the why. So again, it's about this idea of having a purpose behind what it is that you're wanting to do, what it is that you want your brand to accomplish in a bigger, broader way that's connected to purpose rather than simply a profit or a business exchange. It's about like trying to get to the heart of what it is that you're trying to improve or trying to make better or trying to solve or fix. And then in doing that and trying to understand your why, it becomes sort of this idea of mind mapping the whole process and thinking about who is it that you want to help, why do you help them, and how do they feel, and what difference can we make as a brand. And really it becomes about this value system that is defined by understanding a basic core principle of why your company exists and what are the meaningful reasons why you want to be doing what you're doing. And in a way, that's just really good news, because when we look at a brand in this way, then we begin to see that these sometimes what may seem like frivolous products or things out there in the world that are just there to make our lives simpler or easier can become these kind of like these small trivial things. But in the end, if we're creating brands, if you're involved in creating a brand and you have a clear, simple, deep, meaningful purpose behind it, then you're creating something that has deeper value than just the transaction of selling that item or that service to someone. And looking at brands from this internal perspective can then help create a more meaningful, deeper connection to the way we interact with each other as a society. So really it becomes about this idea of taking the parallels of what it is to have the human experience and connect that into the idea of creating brands, creating companies that tap into the human element. The brand purpose acts as the driver for the business. So in the end, it's about trying to like switch the flow of the river so that it's not about the driver of the business being profits, which is kind of the stereotype of big bad business or soulless business, but instead don't look at profits in this kind of way. The profits are a result, but they're a result of something. And the real meaning behind what a business or a service does is not in that result, but in the purpose of the company and the effect it has on how it helps change people's lives or how it helps improve our community. So looking from the flow of purpose as the driver of the business is what really helps make a brand not only more meaningful, but more effective. All right, so with that kind of purposeful foundation, then we have sort of these we can get this kind of like after effect or this secondary effect of then creating a culture within a company that makes for a better experience, makes for a happier employee, makes for more creative, more efficient, more productive, more fulfilled individuals that are working on behalf of this brand, thus making the meaning of the brand even deeper because you have a human energy that's out there creating a consistent message behind what the brand's purpose is because they have an understanding of it and they're living their lives in alignment with it. So in a way, it's about really thinking about, when after you're out of school and after you're looking for or working at your first job or your next jobs or your career overall, I think that it's probably true that most of you want to be doing something that's meaningful and applying the skills and the talents that you have towards being associated with an organization, on a company, a group of people that have a clearly defined meaning that aligns with what your values are. So a brand that has clearly defined purposes can then connect with individuals internally as a staff, as a group, that can then help power and express a brand in the most efficient and most true way possible for sort of the best results overall. Just one more quote here from Simon Sinek. You may see his TED Talks on the why factor, but he says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And that is just such great news to know that if we drill down deeper beyond the sort of capitalist experience, we can see that there's more to it than just the exchange of money and the production of goods and the acquirement of profits, but it's about aligning yourself with the purpose and meaning about what a brand is for and what they do and what they stand for and how they affect change in people's lives. If I were to pull just one quick case study, though, it would have to come out of the story behind Steve Jobs and his journey with Apple and how internal branding really played an integral role in not only the founding of the company, but in sort of the turnaround after his departure and then return and the idea of like lifting Apple up into from sort of the level it was in its early days to be the brand that we all know and love today. And that had a lot to do with his vision of what Apple was about and the meaning behind Apple. One of the first things he did when rejoining the company is he created this campaign that really had nothing to do with computers whatsoever, but instead was this opportunity for him to express the deep purpose of what he thought Apple was about, what he thought this technology he had to offer, what it could really do, and how that technology really was just connected to human achievement and the endeavors we can take on as unique individuals, all with something to say and something to contribute. And he put out this Think Different campaign that really set the tone for the company, put out the idea of what Apple was about with two simple words that everyone can understand, and built a successful company that had a clearly defined core, a clearly defined set of values and objectives that then were easy to understand, easy to enroll in, not only as someone buying the products, but enroll in it as the kind of staff members and the kind of people who we all associate with Apple as a brand when we go shopping at their store or when we're online experiencing them. Internal branding is the driving force that makes Apple successful because their values are understood and loved not only by those of us who consume them, but those who are at the forefront of representing and making the brand. All right, so let's start talking even deeper and more individually about the idea of internal branding and the idea of just sort of internal processes and the kind of way we should begin thinking and looking at ourselves as we participate as creative professionals or future creative professionals. And I want to kind of go do a quick rewind back to the days when I was a student in art school, and I was sitting in a class, an art history class, and got this kind of deep insight that I want to share that connects with this idea of like looking at yourself. I was in this lecture. It was featuring Gauguin, post-impressionism, and I was kind of maybe a little tired and not quite paying attention, but this slide came up and the teacher said in a very like an authoritative voice, he said, "This painting asks the three big questions in life." And that stopped me right there. And I thought, I didn't even realize there were three big questions in life, nor did I have any idea what the answer to those three big questions was. And he said that the three big questions in life are, where did I come from? Why am I here? And where am I going? And these three big questions in life is something that to me was like a big insight, a big, wow moment. And it was like, yeah, what are the answer to these simple these simple questions? How does understanding where I come from, how does knowing the purpose for why I'm here, and how does that an understanding of why I'm here lead to me creating a direction in my life? And I want to encourage each of you to have these three big questions in life in front of you at top of mind as much as possible, so that you're thinking about your past. And I don't just mean where did you come from, where were you born? I'm talking about like in a deeper way, where did not just your family, but even deeper than that, where did we come from in a transcendent way? Like, why are we here? What is it that creates the meaning in my life and the meaning in your life? And that question, why am I here, really is a key question, because for us to find meaning in life, we have to create that meaning, and we have to be able to define the things that are important to us based on our heritage, based on our experiences in the past. And then that understanding, that foundation will then give us a purpose to know where we're going and to begin to achieve those things, because we've set goals based on values. So the idea of creating purpose in our lives is not just in internal branding, not just in a brand, not just in a product and a service, but in you as an individual. You need to be able to create a value system, create an understanding about what makes you live happily, live productively, what powers you to produce and create a better world within yourself and within those around you. So finding your purpose is a key part of that, in the same way it is for companies. And we kind of need to live our lives that way. So for me, kind of following the timeline a little further here, I came out of school, had the three big questions in mind, and knew that part of my purpose was to move on from being a designer working for somebody and to start my own company. So I began my own design firm here in New York over 25, or not quite 25 years ago, but coming on that a few years from now. But the company I founded and I had the pleasure of being to lead and to work with so many great people is called Toda. And my design practice is, we call it a multidisciplinary design firm. And what that means to me is that we really enjoy creating work in different mediums and creating work that isn't specialized in just one type of design format. It could involve brand identity, it could involve print, packaging, exhibit online. That's sort of not the point for us. The point is more about like, how do we best express, how do we best communicate and inspire ideas, and how do we advocate for the idea? Like, let's create solutions that can be in any kind of medium, but that our number one priority is to be the defender and the expressor of inspiring ideas. And doing that means like working in an environment that requires people with lots of different kinds of talent, and being able to kind of manage and creatively direct these different kinds of specialties, and makes for like a really interesting set of days as I can work on lots of different projects and work with lots of different kinds of people. And to do that, though, of course, it has to do the idea of internal branding fits in perfectly. And we went through this process of internal branding, not quite at the conception of our company. After a little while, we were doing it, and we said, wait, we gotta practice what we preach, and we've got to create a value system. We have to understand what it is that we're doing, why we do it. So we hired somebody to help us. We kind of went through this workshopping process and began to define ourselves, define the things that are important to us. We kind of came up with this little idea of TOTA being the wild card, like this idea that we're not the first choice for everyone, but we're kind of unique a little bit, and that when we get chosen, it's because there's a client on the other side of the table that can see that we can maybe provide something different. And we went through a lot of variations of like, how do we express our values, and did these like kind of like really techie looking marketing charts and try to humanize a little bit with this icon of a guy. But then we settled more on this idea of going towards our roots as modernists, and like just trying to find the most simple, easily understandable way of expressing our values. And we just, and sort of in celebration of our results, we created this cake that became this this flow chart that expressed the values that define TOTA, and was tasty and delicious as well. So by doing that, we sort of gave us this clear vision of who we are, and then made us realize that we were responsible to living up to all those values that we put on our cake and munched down. So having those values really helped us understand who we were as a brand and how we should behave as that brand. And that gave us kind of a guiding light, and made us understand that the things we do outside of the work we do, the way we celebrate with our staff, the way that we have down here is a picture of a workshop we did. We brought in not only our staff, but our friends and other designers from other offices, and participated in this redesign of the New York City condom packaging. We would have exhibits that within our office spaces that we showcased our design work, or showcased other designers' design work, and even celebrated different points of interest in terms of our own design heritage, like celebrating Dada and the Bauhaus, or just the winter solstice and having a winter party, or even our own wellness and fitness, and as a team racing from the top of a mountain in New Hampshire to the beach, to the Atlantic Ocean, which was a really challenging but fun endeavor. But able to do this because we had values that we knew, that we had defined as our own brand, as TOTA, as a design firm, and we knew that we had the obligation to live up to those values. And then when it comes to our work, it really became about using those values in a way that guided our work, and guided the way that we created the pieces we did, and also allowed us to have an open mind to understand what the values were, and help define the values of our clients as we help them build their own brands. One project that I've worked on since my very early days, since being a young man, is American Crew, which is a line of men's grooming products. It's like the #1 styling brand in America. It's a professional line of products that are sold in barbershops and salons, and kind of at this higher end level. And I met this guy in Chicago where I used to live, and he was a barber, and he had a shop, and he realized that there were no product brands for men. They were just all unisex or for women. And so he said he wanted to start one. He brought me on board, and I worked with him in creating the brand and creating the packaging, and filled these bottles up with syrup and press type to create this little set of fake bottles that were sort of the beginning point of this, what became a big global, highly successful brand over the past over 25 years. And in doing that, it was about like understanding that this brand had sort of an internal structure, because this brand was about talking to stylists, talking to barbers, talking to professionals at an internal level, that then would lead to connecting with the consumer, the guy that walks into the shop, the guy that sits in the chair. So this two-step process kind of allowed for a unique way of looking at internal and external branding, because you have these human living touch points called barbers that would be behind the chair, who were taught by American Crew on how to create styles and how to use products, and then could be representatives to those products. Um, and that unique kind of dynamic allowed for American Crew to be able to kind of express itself and speak towards the creative professional stylists, while also speaking towards the everyday guy like me who needs haircuts and products, but really to say, pros, you are the ones that are the front lines of our brand, and you're the ones that that the consumers trust, that the consumers go to for this like transcending experience that can bring out the best in a guy, to bring out the best through the way they're styled and the way they see themselves through the skills and talent of a professional. So American Crew and the work we've done there has always been about the sort of two-level internal, external branding in this kind of unique way. And part of that was a campaign we recently did that spoke to the professionals, that kind of made a nod to them, like, crowning them the style makers. And this is a mood board from the development of that campaign and our process of working with American Crew. The idea of like proposing an idea, bringing a team, a marketing team, bringing the founder in and showcasing what our thoughts were, how we can connect American Crew to the professional in a deeper way, help them be even more engaged, more loyal, more of a deep, wholehearted spokesman for the brand, and then help them express that to the end consumer. So creating a campaign that really honored the craft of being a barber, the craft of being an artist or a professional hairdresser, and looking at it not just as looking at it at the kind of diverse people that are connected to the idea of the experience of being behind the chair and representing this brand towards the end customer, the consumer. And so I think that's kind of a unique way of looking at like brands from an internal to external perspective. All right, so a healthy brand, what does this mean? Let's take a look inside of a healthy brand. And another big, probably the biggest client we've worked with is Johnson & Johnson. And Johnson & Johnson is really huge brands with all kinds of sub-brands and product lines that you would never even know were associated with the Johnson & Johnson. It's not just the No More Tears baby shampoo. It's like Band-Aid or Neutrogena, or it's like Benadryl. It's like a lot of products. Tylenol. It's like a vast corporation, and what they're about is about healthcare and wellness. And we work with them on external branding, on external redesigning, and looking at this is a set of experimental packages for Listerine. We redesigned Rogaine with them and created a really long process of like creating a new external brand for Rogaine that reflected a revamped internal brand that wanted to be more about a proactive individual who's trying to solve, or is trying to not even solve a problem, but is trying to live their best life within having a hair loss issue, and not seeing it as a defensive sort of behind the counter experience, but seeing it as something that was efficacious and something that was a positive thing. And working like with all kinds of brands at different levels. And usually it's in this kind of external brand experience, but we got the chance to work with them on this really unique project that was just really a kind of this deep internal branding exercise. That's a perfect showcase here to show you here as a way of how a big corporate brand uses internal branding in a way to communicate internally within its employees and express itself externally to the world at large. And as you know, Johnson & Johnson is as a healthcare company, and they call themselves the world's largest healthcare company. And with being that, there kind of comes a responsibility, right? If you're about health, and if your whole company's mantra is about living your best life and about wellness and living a wholesome life in terms of your health, then what is it that you want to be projecting? What are the kind of values that connect with that? And having employees who on an individual level who are kind of leaders in health and who are who as a community represent the world's healthiest company by being the healthy employees of Johnson & Johnson. So this this internal branding project was about having Johnson & Johnson trying to up their game in this at this level and try to really encourage and make it a positive goal that their employees look at themselves and be proactive about their health and be able to have the tools they need to understand what their health situation is specifically, so that they can be they can be living their best lives. So we were given this project to create a campaign that would help encourage employees to take a health profile, have a health assessment, and for as many employees as possible to have a better understanding of where they were personally in their own health journey. And to do this, they wanted us to create a campaign that would motivate not only the organization within North America, but throughout the globe, because Johnson & Johnson is a big global company with offices and manufacturing plants around the globe in all sectors. So they needed a kind of a global way of banding together the company in this effort to create a better health experience within each individual. So these are just some of the pages from the briefing that we got. And when we think about what's the process, what's the process for internal branding? The process for internal branding is exactly the same as the process for design in general. It's exactly the process for creativity overall. It's the process of how we kind of live our lives in a way. So it's about like having a phase of discovery and understanding and doing research and using the discovery and research and understanding and dialogue to be the foundation for what a concept is, and then creating a concept, creating a design, putting that design out to be tested, to be looked at, to be improved, revising it, and then finally coming up with the result and producing it. So that's the same process we do for all things, and the perfect process is one that we kind of follows this journey. And for us, it's always been about understanding that having a good result, having a design, having a brand that's going to be connecting to our clients is about participation, and it's about enrolling the clients within the process that we do. And to do that, we use research, we use conversation, we use meetings. We have meetings before we present designs. We talk to them about the kinds of things that inspire us, the kinds of things that are out there, like these mood boards that showcase different campaigns that were similar to the health campaign, were different, or maybe were completely different, but had interesting techniques around them. We kind of go through this workshop brainstorming process. And this kind of thing not only helps us begin to think bigger and broader, but it also helps us connect better with our clients and build trust and just create a more enriching dynamic that helps lead to better results, because it's the process of design that's the most important, not just the result that we end up with. So it's about creating ideas that are in the form of words and talking about a design as a statement. So how about the idea of make it count, or the everybody project, or switch on? And what do these ideas mean? And giving them not only meaningful words to understand as the foundation of the idea, but also connecting those with visuals, and how those visuals, or how these ideas can begin to take life within a visual expression. So using mood boards to help understand and help enroll them in these different ideas to understand what works best for them. And then from there, we use that as a foundational platform to begin to build the design and begin to look at what can this idea look like? How does it get expressed? What are the touch points? And creating these worlds, these mocked up worlds that help them understand what it is that an idea can really look like, and is it effective? Give them a chance to sort of see an idea through the sort of these magical tricks we have using Photoshop and using Illustrator and using our talents as creators in photography and illustration, and putting it together in a way, curating this world where they can see like the result of what a decision might be in a campaign or in a concept. So we presented this idea of the Everybody Project and Make It Count, and there are two different ideas here. You can see the difference. And in a classic kind of client moment, they said, we like them both. But we actually like the Everybody Project, and we like this idea, but we like Make It Count as the flagship statement. And of course, it's like, oh no, you can't do that. But they were right. It was like, oh, that's a better idea. Make it count became make it count. And so it was then about not only having these graphic standards or having these like touch point applications, but how do we begin to make this a connective idea that engages everyone in the company, or creates or engages everyone's imagination, because it uses photography to bring out a sort of unique, healthy spirit within the company. And we use classic photography as sort of the inspiration, or the way, you know, that the way that things have been shot in the past show us the way that we can shoot today, and using these mood boards to be within a kit that we share with different photographers, because we had different photographers around the world engage in this. And even using a photographer ourselves that we had used, that I had used within my own projects, and within even some of these are Parsons students, the work I've done with Parsons students. I had this photographer who was perfect for the job, who kind of matched literally the idea of what the inspiration was, and his result had this ability of showcasing the spirit of someone, the healthy spirit of someone, regardless of what they look like or where they were in their own health journey, but brought out a certain dynamic energy. And so we scheduled a bunch of shoots, and we worked internally within their offices, set up studios within different plants and different corporate offices, got employees to participate, from like the highest level people to like ordinary everyday workers, and made this fantastic set of photo shoots that really kind of created a big buzz and got the word out there, and began the campaign of Make It Count, by just understanding that the company cared enough to like showcase and document what it is, the healthy temperature of the company through photography. And by doing this, we were able to like not only do it within North America, but then engage with photographers around the world and plants and offices around the world. And the results just were like beyond expectations. This great set of amazing, beautiful people who are healthy on the inside and outside, and were the spokesman for this idea of getting a health assessment and knowing your numbers and making your life count every day as a Johnson & Johnson employee. And from there, it was just a matter of like taking our photos and getting more photos from around the world, and beginning to create these touch point pieces that express the idea of Make It Count, that help drive the message throughout the different parts of the organization, customize it with the faces, so that they were faces that were local and recognizable within the different sectors, and just kind of follow through with the idea of presenting the idea of the importance of getting your health assessment, offering programs, having the message out there in different touch points, having top people from the CEO to the top executives, you know, be out there expressing their own participation, and you know, it's really also offering incentives to, you know, the good old fashioned, like someone might win one of these cool gadgets, and then putting our money where our mouth is, and having health talks and cooking classes, and just having this whole idea of living a better life through your own individual health experience, and pervading the organization throughout. And the results just really were great, and people loved it. And it was really easily and well embedded into the organization, because it was such a positive, simple, clear message, something everyone can get behind. And there were just a lot of things that I can't go through in this, but every small, it was kind of a community effort. Every small office to big office did their own version of this. And it was the kind of kit that could be exercised or expressed, you know, no matter where you are, everyone got into it. And so the results were great. And they were hoping for like 80%, and they started at 64, and we got up to 95% worldwide. Regionally, we got like 99% in the Americas, and within the different sectors, whether it's pharmacy or medical devices or consumer products or just corporate, 100% on 2 of them. It's just really, really inspiring to see that this kind of idea of internal branding, understanding what your company is about and why you do what you do, and applying it to individuals within your company, can kind of be like a no-brainer and really be successful. So just one more thing, I'm probably taking too long here, but I wanted to go through this kind of personal project that I did over the past 4 years. And this is a set of posters, a set of printed cards that I made each year over the past 4 years. that kind of expressed my own internal process, my own kind of way of thinking. I wanted each year to figure out like, what is it that, what are the mantras, what are the things, what are the short expressions that define me as a creative? What are the things that help me to do the work that I'm doing? What is it that helps me confront the challenges of being a designer? I created each year one of these different cards, and I created them around the idea of the CYMK, like the four colors that are part of the 4-color process, that kind of magical process that allows you to create and print anything using 4 colors. So I thought that there was something interesting about those elements using it for. So for the first one, think it, say it, do it. Think it, say it, do it is this little formula. It's almost like a mantra that you can repeat, but it's really the process of how something happens, how something comes to life. And think it is kind of, that's the sort of the deeper, maybe the hardest, maybe the easiest, but it's the first thing that happens. And it's this idea of like, as creative people, we're constantly coming up with ideas, and thinking of them is a beautiful first step and a necessary first step, but it's hardly the end. And the first act of courage in the creative process is to actually say it, to tell somebody like, I want to do this, and this is my idea, or this is what I'm thinking of creating or doing. And that's the second step. And then doing it is even the hardest one, where you put together those intentions and you realize them through action. So think it, say it, do it is this mantra that I feel is like kind of the formula of getting things done. Follow through is the second one. It's this idea. It's kind of a sort of this physical idea. It's almost like a sports thing where it follow through is about like going all the way back as far as, getting to the back of it, getting to the beginning, and taking it all the way through. And think it, say it, do it's not going to happen if you're not able to have the discipline to pursue what you've decided to do, and to follow through to its finish. So follow through is the second one. And then use what you got is this, it's kind of like the more sort of optimistic one with the organic curly serifs and kind of happy, positive feeling to it. And really what this is this idea that a lot of times we might feel that resources are the problem. Like, I just don't have what I need to follow through and to think it, say it, do it. I can't, I just, if I had a better computer, if I lived in a cooler place, if I had a different school, or whatever the excuse is, this use what you got rejects that. It just rejects it. Like, you have the materials before you, you have all you need. It's an idea founded on gratitude, an idea founded on the idea that you have plenty before you, no matter who you are, where you're at. The materials you need are both outside of you and inside of you. You have to just use what you got. And then finally, the last one I did, which was last year, ironically, right before the pandemic started, is be not afraid. And this is just a really simple idea. It's actually the most used phrase in the most popular book ever published. And be not afraid really is the idea of feeling empowered by a sort of belief in a bigger thing, and the idea that we can confront that blank sheet of paper, and have a confidence to know that we have the ability to transcend and to transform things into better and into the kind of the result we want to have, and to not let fear be the thing that stands in our way. So overall, for me, this is like a good experience of like getting an understanding of my own internal branding processes and what is it that makes up the way that I think and work as a creative. And what I'm going to want you guys to do next in your exercise for this week is to go through that process for yourself and to create a mind map, or create the values, so to write down the values that define you, and create a visual that showcases for you, mostly for you, so you can see what is it that creates your purpose? What are the values that define you? Who are you? Where did you come from? Why are you here? Where are you going? And that is the key for you to have a firm foundation to be a successful creative person and to be a great individual. So that is, well, one more lesson. 1 + 1 does equal 11. Let's look at the world in a little bit different way. And I don't know how that slide got in there, but here's the end. Thank you everyone for listening. And I look forward to seeing the results of your exercise on Mural. Thank you.